All right, we're going to talk a little bit here about hypothecation and partials. All right, I'm going to cover, there we go, cover two things, just a definition to understand what the difference are, okay? Hypothecation it's a fancy word for essentially pledging a note. That's what it is. Banks do this all the time. They will pledge, they'll borrow money back and forth from each other, and they'll pledge their assets, which is essentially their performing notes, as collateral for that. We can do it on a portfolio of notes. You can do it on a portfolio of notes, or you can also do it on a one-on-one type of situation. We've done this with a private investor of ours that wanted a consistent return. All right. The advantage here is that we with the note, all right, we own the rights to collect the debt, and if the debt is not paid, we can take the asset. So you have the paper that gives you the control, and the asset that backs up that paper is what you essentially have. Make sense? Because the asset is the house. We're going to use that as the real estate. So what we basically do, all right, is say you're essentially following two amortization schedules is what you're essentially doing. Say we buy well, I guess we'll just use this as an example. All right, I got to think here a second. All right, we're just going to use the same example here of as far as the note's concerned. So what we're going to do is let's try this. We got let me get back here. You got interest, PV, and payment. All right, so we're going to go back to our example here. 386, 45,000, 8.34. All right, and N being 240. Okay, we purchased this at 40,000, and based upon the calculation, that is actually we purchased this at a yield at a 10% rate is what we've done. So this is actually 10%. Okay. All right. So we have 40,000 into this deal right now. That's what we have. And say we'd like to get most of our money out of this, and we're getting a 386 payment. If we're going to hypothecate, and I'm just going to put hypoth here, or pledge the note, you don't want to do this unless this is a note that is performing exceedingly well. It is a note, like we've done one where it was a 15-year note term, and the borrowers had paid 7 years and never been late once in 7 years. That's a very good performing note, okay? Particularly on a secondary market. We hypothecated that. We got most of our money out, and so we could go and buy another note, and we basically took the spread. So we would be looking in this situation for someone who is a passive lender, someone who wants a consistent income without the ups and downs. You're basically looking in the area here, returns similar to what the bonds would be, certainly better than what a passbook checking account or savings account or anything like that, or even a CD, we may be getting 2% right now. We're going to offer them 6%, and we're offering them 6% with the backing, pledging our note, which gives us the control of the real estate as the collateral for the note. So we're borrowing from our private lender at 6%. At 6%, okay, and say if we want to get 40,000 out of it, maybe we don't want to do get it all at one shot. I want to run some quick numbers here because I didn't practice this beforehand, so so I got to look at look at my mortgage calculator here just a little bit. The bottom line, rather than me run the numbers here, taking the time to do it, the bottom line is that we're taking the spread, we're keeping this spread or the delta between the 10% yield that we purchased that at and the 6% that we're paying out. Okay, does that make sense? So in this one, you know, we're probably, you know, and we would get all of our 40,000 back is what we would get. Okay. So we've got our capital out of it and we're able to go invest into another note. We can, as this is called recapitalization, we can recapitalize, go buy another note. And then we've got a payment stream that's coming in. And I don't know what this is. Say here it's 100, we'll just say it's 150 bucks. I don't know if that's actually the case. I didn't run the numbers. I'm using that as an illustration. This would be a small note balance number to do this strategy with, to be honest. We'd want something a little larger than this to do it with. But all you're essentially doing is taking the delta here, or the difference between the two. We're pledging the note. There's verbiage in the note that essentially if the note stops performing, all right, we have remedies that's in that. It's all legal document. We make the collateral. We actually put the collateral and all the paperwork with a third party, so it's independently administered. And we make it, if we default at any time on that note, that all that the borrower has to do is essentially go and file the assignment. We have what we call a dry assignment in that collateral file. And the borrower basically has to go and prove to the independent person or the independent person that's holding all the documents, the custodian of the documents, and prove that we're not performing as the note is concerned. And all they have to do is assign it, and then they take over the note. And then they have direct access to the real estate, and they can do whatever they want. If they want to foreclose, if they're not paying, if the borrower is not paying, they can foreclose or whatever. In a partial, all right, a partial is essentially what you're doing. You are assigning over a certain number of payments. All right. In this note, the term in months, the origination, we're just using this as origination note. That this is the beginning part of the term, but it could be, you can plug this in and say if the original note was 360 and there's 240 payments left, all right, we're buying this at 45,240 and the face value of the note's 8.34%. Okay, we're essentially assigning a certain number of payments over to another investor for a certain period of time, and then once those payments are made, then it is assigned, the note is assigned back to us. I should say the mortgage. Technically, the note is not assigned. It is the mortgage that is assigned. So the mortgage would be assigned from us, say for 147 pay. I'm using this because this number's up. I don't know if we'll play with this. And this is nothing more than an Excel spreadsheet. You know, this is nothing more than an Excel spreadsheet that has amortization tables in it. Didn't build it. This is way beyond my capability. Hey, I was a PE major, so this is like, if I can do this, you guys can do it. You guys are a lot smarter than I am. All right. I just know how to use it. That's all. A bunch of engineers actually put this together. So, but we are assigning the mortgage for a certain number of payments to give a certain amount of yield, okay, to the investor. And then after those number of payments are made, then the mortgage comes back to us and is reassigned. That's what essentially happens. So how this works, say we've purchased a note, the balance is 45,000. All right, the term, there's 240 payments left. It's the same thing as what we were just working with earlier. Payments 385.98. Why is this slightly different? It's slightly different because of the rounding. Okay, in the mortgage calculator that I use, it's the number of places in the decimal that it takes, and it does affect the payment just slightly. Okay, so we're at 385.98 versus 386. So don't get hung up on that. Understand the concept. All right, depending upon which system you're using, there's always a little bit of variance in there. All right, so the note, we've covered the terms of the note. All right, we talked with an investor that would like to get a 6% yield. All right, so he's got, say he's got $35,000 to invest. So we're going to put this in here, 35,000. He's got 35,000 to invest. Whoops, not that much. Yeah, I'd like to. That'd be a good start. Let's just try this. There we go. All right. He's got $35,000 to invest. If we would assign 147 payments over to him, he's getting an 8% yield. Well, we want to get this so it's at 6. That's what we're basically looking at. Why 6? Because that's pretty much where the fixed rate income type of products are. It's actually slightly better than most of it. And when I'm saying that, I'm talking your bonds, your fixed insurance, annuities, those types of things. They guarantee like 4%. We're not playing, when you're talking with a private investor, we're not playing the ups and downs of the stock market. All right. We're looking at fixed income type of assets, which this is what this would be compared with. So let's go. All right. So essentially we're going to go 100. We're going to pay a few more payments. We're going to do 150 and see where that puts us at. That's 0.82. Let's pay here. Well, I'm not doing that. Let's go this. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. I didn't catch that. 135. All right, let's go 130. See, told you anybody can do this. All right, let's go 120. That's a little too much. Let's go 122. Yeah, that's close enough. That's good enough. 121 is probably going to put us under. Yeah. So I'll be a nice guy and go 122. How's that? We'll give him a little more. All right. So we would assign 122 payments, all right, of the 240 that we have left over to the investor, the passive investor. This is typically a passive investor that would fit into this model. Someone who is busy with their job, all right, they just want a good return on their money that's consistent and is well protected. That's what they're basically looking for. And what we do in a partial here, we would assign, there's legal documents that's involved, we would assign the 122 payments from wherever we're at right now for the next 122 payments, that would be assigned over to the investor. All right. And we would also put a limited, we would also have them sign a limited POA, because it's been our experience in working with private lenders or private investors, I should say, is that they want it totally done. So it allows us to stay in the deal. If there's anything that happens to hiccup or whatever, we'll handle it. The limited POA is essentially just acting on their behalf concerning managing the note for them. Okay. And if we do good notes, there's not too much that you have to do, but every once in a while, one stops paying or whatever, and we start, then we have to work with the servicer, and the servicer has to see that limited POA so that we are able to work with them and manage the note. So, so they would get the next 122 payments. All right. When you look at the, and if you just look at the amortization schedule, here's the full amortization. All right. Here's the partial. Okay. Starts at 35,000, goes down. So again, you're just following two amortization schedules. But the difference is that they are getting the entire payment, whereas in the hypothecation method, we are getting the full payment, and then we're paying part of that. Then we're getting the full payment to us, and then we're turning around and paying the private lender their interest and principal that's due to them on the note, okay, that we have taken out with them. So we're going to look at a chart. All right, this is the entire note versus partial price. All right. This part, can everybody see my cursor fine? I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. This is the entire note all the way here. from 1 to 240 payments. All right. Here's the 35,000 that the investor has invested. He gets all of these payments up to 122. We get nothing during that period of time. So essentially for 10 years, we get nothing. All right. Then when it reverts back to us, we get all of it. All right. So what you can do, all right. So this is what is attractive to many private investors, is that they get paid first before we do. Okay. So that it is a scenario where they're getting all of their monthly payments before we're going to pick a dime. Before we receive a dime, we're kind of overseeing the note, making sure everything is going fine, and they're getting their monthly payment. Okay, so we would act and help them on their behalf. If one would go bad, okay, there's a couple things that happen. If one of these notes would go bad, we have a number of different options. All right, if someone stops paying, we can modify the note. We can do a deed in lieu. We can actually do a foreclosure, modify the note so they can get paying again. And there's some verbiage in the document so that this individual is protected. All right, the investor is protected, and they will get their money. Sometimes if you have to go through foreclosure, it's going to take a little time. But all of that accrued interest, all the fees and everything, that does come back. One just went through sheriff's sale that we purchased here in October of last year. That was a non-performing that just went through sheriff's sale yesterday. Okay. And we're going to make about 25 grand on it. Okay. We purchased it as a non-performing note is what we did. So that's a story for another, that's a topic for another day, but it gives you roughly an idea. So if we go back here and look at the input, all right, so we said they had 35,000. Now let's look at this from a different angle as well. Say we know that we have 40,000 into this. We bought this note at a discount. The 45,000 is the unpaid principal balance of the note, but we bought it for 40. All right, so we're looking for someone that we go and talk to and say, yeah, they have 40,000 they'd like to invest. Our objective is to pull all of our money out. When we do this method, we essentially look at getting most, if not all, of our money out, and then so we've got money then to go and buy another note. So what we're essentially doing is we're packing away the back end of these notes is what we're doing. All right. If we look at this chart, if the note would say happen to pay off at month 61. All right, at month 61, the amortization schedule, don't hold me to it exactly here, is probably around 23.5. So the investor is going to receive his 23,500 of principal that still is returned, and then we get the difference here, which for us, we get the balance then. Okay, the balance at 61 months is roughly 40,000. So we would get the difference between 40,000 and 23.5. So the private investor is entitled to 23.5. He's paid out, and we get the difference then between that 23.5 and the 40,000. This is a way in which you're able to leverage the money that you do have. Okay. Say you've only got 50,000 to invest, you've purchased a note for 45,000. What you essentially have done, and you've turned around and sold 100. What was it? I forget what the payments were. You sold 122 payments to get 35,000 back of that. But let's move on and say let's try to get all of it back. You purchased a $45,000 note at 40,000, a $5,000 discount, which is realistic. So now you're looking for an investor that's willing to put in 40,000. Okay. And you're going to have to give me more payments. So we're going to say 140 payments, use that as an example. We're pretty close. 145, 148, 6.14. What's 147? Put us at. Yeah, 147. Okay. So you're going to assign, all right, you got 240 payments, all right, left. Remember, you purchased this note for 40,000 and you now are selling 147 payments to get your full 40,000 back. All right, so you can go invest in another note. What's that look like on the back end? Okay, so here's what you're looking at. The blue is the investor. Okay, that's what the investor is entitled to. The orange is what you are entitled to after the investor has received all of his payments. So what is, I'm just running real quick. So you got 240 minus 147. All right, so you're entitled to 93 payments is what you're entitled to on the back end. Your money's in, your money's out. You've got 93 payments that's down the road. Again, if it pays off early, you still get this money. If it's at 61 months, I'm just using that as an example here. If it's at 61 months, we're going to follow this up, and the investor's going to get probably around 28,000. And what's the difference between 28 and 40?
12.
Yeah, 12. Yeah. So you've received 12,000. You've got no money in the deal. You received $12,000, and you got now 12,000 more to go and invest in 61 months. If the investor goes all the way out to 147, you're entitled to 93 payments. 93 payments times 386. All right, you're entitled to 35,800, 898, 35,898 is what you're entitled to if it would go to full term with no money in the deal. So that's all gravy. So what you're basically doing, you're packing as much as you can do this over and over, you're packing this on the back end. Now, obviously it takes a little time for all that to start kicking in, but when it starts kicking in, it's gangbusters. Again, a great strategy you can certainly use in a self-directed IRA. All of these strategies, you cannot, let me back up. The partial model and the 10-year model you can use in a self-directed IRA. That is fine. The partial model, to stay compliant with IRA rules, you need to make sure that you leave some money in the deal. Otherwise, and you don't want to do too many of these in a year. Otherwise, you may get slapped as being a dealer, and that would not be good. There's some penalties for that. And you cannot do the hypothecation model. Well, you could, but you're going to pay unrealized income tax. What's it called? UBIT, unrealized business income tax, which is exceedingly aggressive. So you don't want to do that model you don't want to do a hypothecation model in a self-directed IRA. You want to do the partial model or just the 10-year approach, either way. But as long as you're leaving some money in the deal, like say the 35,000, rather than trying to get all of it out, because the reason you have to do that, if you don't leave money in the deal, it's not considered an investment. That's why, from IRA rules. So you've got to leave some money in there.